Losing everything is the only prerequisite for understanding what Machiavelli was actually saying. It's not about cruelty. It's not about manipulation. It's about seeing the world as it truly operates, without illusion, without filters, without the comfort of believing the world should be fairer than it is. Those who have lost a job, a relationship, a reputation, or money know it in a way that those who haven't lost simply cannot fully grasp. Because when you lose everything, the illusion becomes impossible to sustain. And that's precisely where Machiavelli's 7 truths begin to make sense. This video is not for those who are comfortable. It's for those who are at rock bottom, or for those who have been there and refuse to go back. Each of these truths was recorded by a man who lost power, was tortured, exiled, and still never abandoned what he knew. And what he knew was too heavy to ever be popular. You'll understand why these ideas still unsettle those at the top, and why they set free those at the bottom. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513, after being removed from office, imprisoned, and subjected to torture. He lost 14 years of service to the Florentine Republic in a matter of days. When he left prison, he was sent into exile on a country estate. No power, no title, no income. And it was there that he wrote the book the world would try to censor for centuries. But there's a detail almost no one mentions. The book was not written for the people. It was written for Lorenzo de' Medici, the ruler of Florence, as an offering. Machiavelli wanted to return to power. He was trading knowledge for an opportunity. The book was rejected. Lorenzo had no need for advice. He already had power. And that says everything. Machiavelli's truths were never absorbed by those who had already made it to the top. They were absorbed by those who had lost their footing and needed to rebuild. Because when you still have something to lose, you read Machiavelli with suspicion. When you've already lost everything, you read him with recognition. Here is the first pattern. Real knowledge about power is only accessible to those who have been stripped of it. Truth 1. People judge by results, not by intentions. Machiavelli wrote something that still provokes a reaction today. The ends justify the means. That phrase has been distorted, ripped out of context, and used to justify all kinds of abuse. What he was actually saying was something far more precise. He was saying that in the real world, people don't judge the path. They judge the destination. If you lie for 10 years and build an empire, people will call you a genius. If you act with complete honesty and go bankrupt, they'll call you naive. This is not a defense of dishonesty. It's a description of what actually happens. For those who have lost everything, this truth stings in a specific way. The loss almost never came from bad intentions. It came from the naivety of believing that good intentions were enough, that working hard would be rewarded, that being honest would offer protection. Machiavelli says no. What gets rewarded is the result. And if you want to be judged by your intentions, you first need to build a position where people listen to you. Without a position, your intentions matter to no one but yourself. It's harsh, and it's true. Truth 2. Neutrality is an illusion that destroys those who believe in it. Machiavelli said that those who try to remain neutral in a conflict end up being destroyed by both the winner and the loser. Think about what that means in practice. When there's a dispute, at work, in a social circle, in a family, and you decide not to take sides, you think you're protecting yourself. You believe you'll stay out of the fight. But what happens is that both sides start seeing you as something to be used or discarded. You have no allies. You're a threat to both sides because you're not trustworthy to either. Those who have lost everything have been through this. They tried to be balanced, agreeable to everyone. And when the storm hit, no one came looking for them. Because neutrality doesn't build loyalty. Loyalty comes from taking a stand. You will need to choose sides. Not because the world is binary, but because those who don't choose have no allies. And without allies, you are the weakest person in the room. No matter how much you know or how much you produce. This is not about being extreme. It's about having clear positions. People need to know where you stand. Truth 3. Fear is more reliable than love as a foundation for stability. You've heard it. It is better to be feared than loved. But most people stop at that line and miss everything that follows. Machiavelli explained that love is unstable. People love when it's convenient. When circumstances change, when there's scarcity, when pressure builds, love disappears. Fear, when properly calibrated, is more consistent, not because people are evil, but because the instinct for self-preservation is stronger than affection. The ideal was to be feared without being hated, not to cause needless terror, but never to depend on the goodwill of others. For those who have lost everything, this resonates in a painful way. You were loved while you were useful, admired while you were producing. And when you fell, you discovered who was truly in your corner. Probably far fewer people than you imagined. Machiavelli isn't telling you to intimidate people. He's telling you to stop building stability on the affection of others. Affection is volatile. Competence is what remains when affection disappears. Results are what don't depend on the mood of those around you. Those who build on love build on sand. Those who build on results build on rock. A direct question before we continue. Which of these first three truths did you already know, but still weren't acting on? Because knowing is not the same as using. And what comes next are the truths that are hardest to accept. Truth 4. Fortune favors those who act, not those who wait for the right moment. Machiavelli said that fortune is like a river. When it's calm, you can attempt to control it. When it floods, it sweeps away whatever is in its path. The question isn't whether the river will flood. The question is what you built before it did. Hesitation doesn't protect you from risk. It only postpones your encounter with reality. Those who have lost everything often carry the weight of a moment when they hesitated. They knew what needed to be done, and they waited. Waited for the right time, the right signal, the perfect opportunity. And the world didn't wait along with them. Imperfect action taken at the right time is worth more than perfect action taken too late. Machiavelli wasn't preaching impulsiveness. He was preaching that the world rewards those who move. If you are rebuilding, this is the most practical truth on this entire list. You will not rebuild by thinking. You will rebuild by acting, failing, adjusting, and acting again. There is no other way. Truth 5. Those who do things by halves create enemies, not allies. Machiavelli observed that there are two opposite errors that destroy those who lead: punishment by halves and reward by halves. If you must punish, do it decisively all at once, so that the pain passes quickly and doesn't continue accumulating resentment. If you must reward, spread it out over time so that gratitude renews itself. Half a punishment keeps resentment alive. Half a reward generates no real loyalty. Applied to everyday life, when you need to end something, a relationship, a partnership, a contract, a situation that has already run its course, doing it halfway is the most destructive thing you can do. You prolong the pain, create ambiguity, and never leave the situation without carrying every ounce of its weight. Those who have lost everything frequently lost because they didn't know when to end things. They stayed in a bad job for too long, stayed in a relationship that was already over, stayed in a project that was already dead. Every additional month was a month draining energy towards something with no future left. Truth 5 is about the cut, about knowing when ending is more powerful than persisting. If you're still holding on to something out of fear of losing it, you've probably already lost it. The only question now is how much more you'll lose before you finally cut ties. Truth 6. The people who tell you what you want to hear are the greatest threat to your growth. Machiavelli dedicated an entire chapter to flatterers. He called them one of the most difficult plagues to combat, precisely because fighting them feels like ingratitude. They appear loyal, but what they actually do is deprive you of real information. A leader surrounded by flatterers makes decisions based on a distorted version of reality. And when real reality finally shows up, it arrives as a shock, with no warning, with no preparation. For those who have lost everything, Looking back often reveals a gallery of people who never told the truth, who approved bad decisions, who agreed with flawed plans, who applauded projects without ever saying, "This doesn't make sense." Machiavelli's solution was surgical. Reward the critic. Actively ask what's going wrong. Surround yourself with people who say what is, not what you want to hear. And learn not to punish those who tell you uncomfortable truths. Because if you reacted poorly to honest criticism even once, you guaranteed you would never receive it again. People quickly learn what is safe to say to you. Those who cannot bear to hear what hurts are building their next fall while believing they're still rising. Truth 7. Real stability comes from your own foundations, never from the favors of others. Machiavelli's final truth is scattered throughout the entire work, but it can be distilled into one idea. Power you did not earn through your own efforts will not last. It disappears the moment those who granted it change their interests. He called this the distinction between his own arms and borrowed arms. The prince who depends on mercenaries, on external allies, on the favors and protections of third parties is always in a fragile position, because those weapons belong to others, and others have other interests. For those who have lost everything, this truth carries brutal clarity. Most catastrophic losses share a common structure. Someone built upon something that belonged to someone else. A job that belonged to the company, an income that depended on a single client, a reputation that rested on the support of someone with power. And when that support was withdrawn, everything collapsed. True rebuilding begins when you stop borrowing what you need to build. You accept that it will be slower, harder, lonelier. But what you raise with your own hands, no one can take from you by simply changing their mind. Machiavelli spent his exile writing, without a title, without resources, without support. He produced the book that defines the study of political power to this day. What he created in that period is the seventh truth in action. Radical construction with his own hands, in the worst possible moment. There is a specific reason why these ideas are more valuable after a great loss. And it isn't sentimental. Those who have never lost operate within a psychological shield, naive optimism. You believe that effort is rewarded, that loyalty is mutual, that the world is reasonably fair. That belief isn't wrong. It's necessary to function in daily life. But it leaves you vulnerable to shocks that someone with experience would have seen coming. When you lose everything, naive optimism breaks. The first reaction is cynicism. The world is bad, people are flawed, nothing works. Many people stop right there. And cynicism is just as blind as optimism, only pointing in the opposite direction. What Machiavelli offers is a third position: strategic realism. Seeing the world as it actually functions, without romanticism and without bitterness. Making decisions based on how people and systems truly behave, not on how you wish they would. This position is only available to those who have already been through the breaking point. Those who haven't been broken see it as pessimism. Those who have been broken recognize it as clarity. These 7 truths are not meant to be admired. They are meant to be used right now. Which of the 7 is most absent from your life at this moment? If you're still trying to please everyone, the second truth is your starting point. Today. If you're still building on someone else's approval, the 7th is what you need to work on right now. If you're in a situation that's already over but haven't ended it yet, the 5th is your way out. Machiavelli was not a monster. He was a man who lost his position, was tortured, exiled, and forgotten in his own lifetime, and used all of it to write the most honest analysis of power the world had ever seen. He didn't soften it because he had nothing left to lose. And these truths share one thing in common. They don't work while you can still pretend you don't need them. You had to lose in order to understand. And understanding now is the advantage that those who have never lost simply don't have. Use it, not as an excuse to be cold or calculating. Use it as a map. Maps don't change the terrain. They tell you where you are. And knowing where you are is the beginning of any road back. If this content reached you, Share it with someone who is also in the process of rebuilding. Not out of obligation, but because this kind of idea lands better when it comes from someone who genuinely believes it can help. Silent discipline continues here,